Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to do a little bit of a roundup again, late night roundup tonight. And I thought I'd bring our good friend Dan United onto the channel. What are you saying, Dan? You good?
All good, my man. All good. Very good result last night, which we spoke about a little bit off air. But as you know, as the fan I am of Manchester United, not reading too much into it, which I'm sure people will be hammering me for. But we'll get into that, I should imagine.
Yeah, we will get into that, man. We'll start with that. There's been some news today of some more transfers away from Arsenal and United, but linked with Arsenal United also. We're going to talk a little bit about Zaha, who looks like he's off to Turkey. Elise, who looks like he's going to have a release clause in his contract. And Man City and Chelsea interested. Looking at Kudus to Arsenal and also Rasmus Højlund, who apparently Fabrizio Romano is saying Man United are preparing for a first official bid for him. I don't know what that's going to be in the region of. Perhaps we can discuss that in a bit. But I only saw the goals or the low lights because it wasn't really a highlight from yesterday's game. As far as Arsenal concerned, poor goals to concede. I thought that Ramsdale should have done a lot better probably for both, but definitely for the first. And Gabriel got completely done over in the second goal. Brushing off the cobwebs, it's okay to make mistakes in these games, but we look a little bit rusty, in my opinion, yesterday. And it was a game where you can take a lot out of it, or you can take little out of it. And I don't know whereabouts you're at, Dan, in terms of a pre-season friendly. But always want to beat Arsenal, always want to beat United. But when it gets to that stage of a friendly, that is exactly what it is. So where are you with that one, man? Yesterday, what did you think of it?
Yeah, look, as I say, I get bantered on this show, I think, for my negativity, but it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a friendly. We're not going to win anything, from last night's performance. There's still holes in the team. Manchester United last night obviously played Tom Heaton in goal. Kobe Mainoo, who, by the way, I've watched all of the preseason friendlies now, and that boy's got some talent pots. I tell you, I just hope he isn't rushed into a midfield, and I hope that Manchester United don't think, well, actually, we don't need to go out and buy anybody else in midfield now. Let's just keep with Mainoo. He's someone that needs to be nurtured and given the right times to play. We also didn't have a striker again last night. We saw Jadon Sancho as that false nine, which again, a lot of Manchester United fans this morning saying, well, hang on a minute, we've got Jadon Sancho that can play there now. We don't. It's a result like that can I think it can shed a lot of positivity in the wrong way. United are still a long way off transfer-wise what they need to be doing. Rasmus Højlund, which we'll speak about in a bit, we need to get him in. There's been talks today that I'm quite surprised. Well, I'm surprised, I'm not surprised, but apparently a bid coming in for Martial to go to Saudi, which if we can get a bit of money back on him, that would be unreal, because my concern with that was I honestly saw Martial running his contract down and going on a free. So if we can get some money for him, that would be great. But there was a lot of positives for sure last night. And what I liked about it is, as much as it was a friendly, it had the feel of a competitive game. There was a lot of tackles flying in. The one Martinez did on Saka, I'll be honest with you, in pre-season, you don't want to see it. And you can put a lot of it down to it's the mentality. He's a winner. He wants to win. But at the same time, I think we need to remember sometimes with the players that it's pre-season. But it's one of them. I mean, I didn't understand the penalty shootouts at the end. I believe that was something that Arsenal and Manchester United had agreed just to get penalty shootouts in front of a crowd. But it's one of them, mate. It's 2-0. A lot of the young boys getting some more minutes. Bit of a shame that Ahmad's come off with an injury after a couple of minutes. But we move forward now. Obviously, we've got Borussia Dortmund and Real Madrid. I'm not expecting it to be a walk in the park, but the main thing is the boys are getting minutes.
Yeah, and it is minutes, but unfortunately for me, I've always been about winning, even if it is in friendlies. I don't think you can take a lot from it, but I think you can see where you're still looking at being weak. I think as far as Arsenal are concerned, we haven't seen much from Kai Havertz yet. I don't think Eddie Nketiah is the guy up top, and I've always said that we needed a striker, and I think that was clear again yesterday. Martinelli should have done better, in my opinion. I do think he was really good, like him and Saka, but actually looking at when it comes to scoring, I think he should have done better with the double shot that he had. I think that when Party come on, things looked a bit better. Tierney come on, looked a bit better. And it's a strange one for me because Tomiyasu was really good, don't get me wrong, but this Kieran Tierney thing is a strange one. He feels like he's like fourth choice left back. It's very weird. I'm a big fan, as people know, of Kieran Tierney, and I just worry about where his long-term future is and if it is at Arsenal, if that's going to be the case. Timber and White getting minutes was good. Gabriel and Ramsdale got to be disappointed, as I said early on. I think both of their goals were both errors from both of them. Gabriel, it was like a under fives game the way he was defending for that goal. It was shocking.
I agree.
Ramsdale should have done better, man. But listen, there's a lot of positives to take in friendlies and a lot of negatives to take, and I think it would have been definitely that for United and for Arsenal. I wanted to ask you, though, Dan, on the thing you mentioned about Martinez, because for me, Man United and Arsenal has always been a rivalry, and there's always been tackles going in.
It's the proper rivalry, innit, Potts? It's the proper Premier League rivalry, that is. I won't have it any other way.
Honestly, I do feel like Arsenal, Man United have been the rivals throughout my lifetime with Fergie and Wenger. We've both fallen as clubs massively for where we should be, in my opinion, over the last 10, 15 years, particularly the last decade, but as far as Manchester United are concerned, with since Fergie's left. But I do think that both clubs are looking a hell of a lot better than we have done in the last couple of seasons. But having said that, I don't really mind if tackles go flying in friendlies, because for me, that's what it should be about, Arsenal United. And I see a lot of Arsenal fans going mental about it, saying it's out of order and all this kind of stuff. Well, that's on the referee. It's not on Man United. Man United are going to go in as hard as they can until the referee tells them to calm down. I was speaking to judges that he was saying that, since Xhaka's gone, we haven't really had that fight and stuff. And I'm like, listen, it's been a couple of games, man. I do think that we do potentially have to look at that and say, okay, if Xhaka was the guy to do that, where is that next guy? Is it Declan Rice? Is it somebody that comes and steps into that role, like a Gabriel or a Thomas Partey or somebody like that? But I didn't look at the game and think, wow, Arsenal are going to struggle for top four this year. Do you know what I mean? It's a game, isn't it? It's just one of those things. I think what it does do, though, Dan, is show where we're still weak. I still feel that if Saka was to get a knock, we haven't got that player to come in. I still think that up top, we're very short if Jesus was to go and get himself injured. And I also think that we need another midfielder because we've only really got kind of Havertz, Rice and Partey in there now, and Jorginho. I feel we need another 8, if I'm honest with you. Unless, of course, we're going to see Havertz playing there, which I don't think seems to work. It's a strange one for me. Declan Rice playing there is good. That's what I'd like to see, is Partey holding Rice in the 8 and then Ødegaard in the 10. But I don't know, Kai Havertz, I don't really get it, man. Not for me so far.
It's a weird transfer, Potts, because I think obviously since you've been on this show, and obviously Arsenal have improved, I think, a lot under Arteta recently. I think it's a signing that can either make Arteta look a genius, or people will start to say, what the hell is he doing making this sort of signing? If he can unlock something in Havertz, then you could potentially have a decent player there. But like we've said on this show for so long now, we said it all of last season, I don't understand what Havertz is. I don't understand what he does on a field. No. So it's a tough one. It is a tough one. And I think you're completely right in the sense of you've bought well this season, but you need to be. I think you need to make sure you've got cover in the right positions, because I've said this for so long. A first 11 doesn't win you Champions League, Premier League, all the cups. It's a squad. You look at the great Manchester United side of the 90s. Ferguson always had players in and around positions that if someone fell out, he could put in. And I think that's what you need to do, especially with the demands on the modern day game now as well. These lads play a lot of football. I do think, from what I've read, though, I don't know if you know more on this, he does want more business in, doesn't he? Arteta, he does want a few more in. So it's coming up to the season now. We'll see a lot more happening, I think.
We will, and I think we'll see some outgoings before we see incomings. I don't think we'll be able to be guaranteed more incomings straight away. I think the likes of Pepe, Tavares, Lokonga, and then considering futures of players like Tierney, Partey, Balogun, who people think might stay, might go, we still don't know for certain. 100%. It sounds like from the murmurings that Arteta's making that, we want outgoings and incomings, but it looks like Partey's going to be one that probably looks like he wants to keep him now, which I'm really, really hoping is true. I don't want to lose him. So for me, yes, we do need players. One of those players that Arsenal, of course, are linked with is Kudus from Ajax, who I think will be a very, very good player. A number of positions, very versatile, playing in the kind of attack in midfield across the front three as well. I think Chelsea would be interested in him as well, from what I'm being told. But we'll talk about it in a minute. But Olise is being rumoured now. Interest of Chelsea. Listen, let's be real, Dan. Chelsea want everyone, don't they? Do you know what I mean? Chelsea literally want every player. It's not even started properly,
has it? It's not. It hasn't. The tap's just trickling at the moment for the players they're going to bring in. It's going to. But the thing is, I don't know about you, mate. they're doing it all too late again, I think. Do you know what I mean? They're going to bring all these players in again at the end of the transfer window, which obviously I know they had to do a lot for the FFP, but it just feels like that. I don't know that they've sort of slowed right down, and I think it'll be a mad dash at the end to get these players in again. Do you know what I mean?
The Caicedo one's a strange one for me, Dan. Like, how's that not been done yet? You know,
Yeah.
De Zerbi come out in the last game of the season and said, we're losing Alexis McAllister and Caicedo. McAllister goes to Liverpool in the first week of the window. Caicedo's still at Brighton. Now, apparently they're asking for too much money, but let's be real. Why would they not? They know Chelsea have got money. They spent 115 on Enzo. They've just sold 11 players. They're going to ask for 100 million, aren't they? Whether they believe he's worth it or not, whether Chelsea think he's worth it or not, they're going to say, you either stay at Brighton and stick with Europe, or you go and play one game a week with Chelsea and get a load of money. What do you want to do? Now, I'd be really frustrated, and I don't know if you would be either. Liverpool, United and Arsenal all want a Caicedo in their side. Like, I would love Caicedo. I'm sure you would too. I'm just
100%.
surprised no one else has got in for him. And it's weird for me, that one. I don't know what's going on there.
He's a quality player, and the thing that I think surprised me that other teams aren't going in for him is he's Premiership proven already for me. He's strong on the ball. I saw him play a couple of positions for Brighton last season, which I think is stunning. I think the fact that he's quite able to be that utility player. But I still think he goes there, Potts, and I do think that they will get what they want for him. I think they will get the money. The thing is, we've said about this before on the show, Brighton have come out of nowhere to be this extremely well-run club, and the way they do their business is stunning. Is absolutely stunning. So, and the other side of it as well is they'll have someone in the wings that they're ready to bring in for him. I think they're just going to drag out and get as much money as they can for him. I don't think Caicedo will do anything stupid like he did last season. Sort of, right, I want to go to Arsenal. I'm going to put this post out. I think he will. He's learned from that. I think being a young lad, I think he's probably listened to his agent, listened to people around him far too early last time. Whereas this time, I think he'll just keep his head down and get on with it. But I do think he goes to Chelsea. I don't know about you. I can't see anybody else going in from United.
No, I don't think either of the clubs will go. It will be Arsenal that goes in from, if anybody. But now that they've got their Declan Rice over the line, I do feel that they'll look at their other positions and think, right, how much do we need Caicedo? For me, he'd be the next one I'd go and get, because it's going to be 80 or 90 million, isn't he? Plus, so you go and spend that on him. But Arsenal, for me to have a perfect window now, to give it a 10 out of 10, would be a centre forward, a right winger, and a central midfielder. I think we're there with those three then. So we've got three in. We need another three more, in my opinion. Of course, that's if we keep players. If we're losing like Party, then we'd have to look at it seriously again. But I think at the moment, the way the squad is, if the outgoings are expected, I actually do feel like there'll be an opportunity for us to go and get those three in the door, whatever those three look like. As far as Man United are concerned, what's your situation? Because Rasmus Højlund is a guy who looks like he's going to be coming. Now, I see this as a risk, Dan, and I'll tell you why. I think he's got 8 goals or 7 goals for Atalanta. He's clearly talented, and Denmark really, really rate him. They think he's going to be top draw, right? He's a young player, so of course he can grow. But being Manchester United's main man is very, very... There's a lot of pressure on that. For a player who's going to be new to this league, young to this league, and for a hell of a lot of money. The rumours are like between like 50 and 70 million or something crazy I was reading. So what's your thoughts on this one, bro?
Look, he's obviously a talent, and the one thing I will say about this transfer window is the players that we've got in, albeit we've not been able to spend the money that we want on these players, but they've been players that Ten Hag has wanted to bring in. So Ten Hag's obviously been watching him for a while. I think he's got a high ceiling. I think he can achieve a lot. But I echo what you're saying. He's a young boy coming in to be the main focus of Manchester United up top. I would quite happily love to see us bring him in if Martial does go to the Saudis. I would love to see us bring in a sort of an experienced striker to come in there and take a bit off him. Man United tax extra 30 mil. Wow, yes, yeah, but you could say that for every club at the moment, couldn't you? You could say that for every club.
The market's gone crazy.
He's got talent, and I think what I like about him, he's strong, he's quick. He obviously backs himself, which is what you need to be a striker in the Premier League, I think. But I do want to see people around him. I don't want to see us just put all the pressure on him next season, because as we've seen, Potts, so many of these players that come through who look like they're going to be an extremely quality talent crumble under the pressure of having everything put on them. So it's interesting to see. I kind of, at the moment, for Manchester United's transfer window, I'm at a 5 out of 10 at the moment. I'll be honest. I just don't think we've strengthened as much as we should have. I think the Harry Maguire show's going on far too long now. Obviously, he's had the captaincy taken off him, so surely that means it's got to be the end for Harry Maguire. It's either a case of he just enjoy it, he's happy to sit there and earn all the money and maybe think that he's going to start for England all the time, or I don't know. I'd like to see Southgate the next round of England games drop him if he does stay at Manchester United, because his time's done there. My other worry is, I'll be honest with you, is I watched Johnny Evans come back for a friendly against Lyon.
Oh, wow.
And honestly, the way that this club is run, I just worry far too much here that Manchester United will think, well, if we haven't got the money, we could obviously bring in Johnny Evans. He could be our fourth choice centre-back. He's 36. His wages will be low. 12-month deal, sorted. That can't happen. That can't happen. Manchester United will need another centre-back if Maguire goes. We need another central midfielder, and we need two strikers. So obviously Højlund being one and bring in another. So at the moment, I'm not convinced that the business we've done is anywhere near good enough for us to compete for top four, because like we've said before, mate, teams that were crap last season are going to be stronger this season. Chelsea, we've just said about, they will go out and buy players. Liverpool, obviously, at the moment, they're letting Henderson, Fabinho go. They'll have a clear plan of who they're going to be bringing in, and I worry that they will be stronger. Núñez this season, I think, will be a lot stronger than he was last season. I think it was a learning curve, for the Premier League last season. This season, I think we'll see a different side. So we need more. We need a lot more.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? Because at the moment, if the window was to end, I don't think I'd have Man United in my top four.
Me neither, mate. 100%.
It's mad. I think I'd swap Liverpool and Man United over. I think United would come fifth and Liverpool top four. So, yeah, it's mad. And everyone laughs at Newcastle. Newcastle won't have a good enough squad. They'll be in the Champions League. I disagree. I think that the way they're starting to move, they're going to do things wisely. Like Harvey Barnes is a very good signing. I think Tonali's a very good signing. I also think Livramento, they're linked with another centre half and another winger. I'm like, wow, this is a side that isn't mucking around, So,
and they've gone about their business quietly, Potts, as well. They haven't just gone,
and very
we're going to spend all this money. They've done it the proper way, and I think that's it, isn't it?
Yeah, they have for sure. Smokey Settings has said in the chat quite correctly that it is top 5 this season. And that wasn't really what I meant. It doesn't bother me really, but actually I don't have. If it was to be a top 4, Man United ain't in it at the moment. A lot can change, Dan. You go and buy that centre forward or a couple of them. You go and get the midfield that you need right. You go and sort your right hand side out, because I think Rashford is clearly your left hand side. I don't know if Sancho and Antony are good enough, if I'm honest with you. I'd like to think that Ten Hag can try and get something out of Sancho, because there's clearly a player there. Antony, for me, is just a little bit of a circus act, if I'm honest. I look at him and think that he's got all the technique in the world, but I don't really see much output, if I'm honest. But, that could change in this
Mate, I watched him against Lyon. I watched him against Lyon, and I watched him and I watched Diallo, and I looked and I thought, you wouldn't have, if you were to tell me one of them was 100 million, the other one was 35 million, you'd be hard pressed to find which one it was, because there wasn't too much difference between their games. Anthony's got a big season this season. I mean, he's got a lot of chest for a player who's not really performed in a Manchester United shirt. This season, he has to. And the thing is, I've said this so many times on this show and with you boys as well. If you can't defend against Anthony on that right-hand side, why are you playing football? Because he's just going to try and cut back and hit it in with his left. It's not good. It's not good.
Yeah, I agree. He's very predictable, and I do think that Pepe had that as well at Arsenal. He was very, very predictable on that right-hand side, and very much reminds me of that type of signing. The only thing with Pepe is, I will say, actually, his numbers were pretty good at Arsenal. There was a lot he didn't do, but actually delivering was one of them. He used to create and he used to set up and he used to score, but it just wasn't at the level that we needed. And rightly so, it looks like he's going to be moving out. How many players do you expect to come through the door at Man United, mate?
I would like to see another 3. That's without Rasmus Højlund, but at the moment, it wouldn't surprise me if it's just Rasmus Højlund and maybe if we generate the funds, Amrabat. That's all I can see happening at the moment. Again, it all depends on how much funds we generate as well. You know what I mean? They are trying to get people out the door, but Manchester United, I mean, you got to look at it. In the last 10 years, one of their biggest players that they sold for a profit was Dan James. That's horrendous. That's absolutely horrendous. So it will be 2 at the moment, I think, but I'd like it to be 3, maybe 4.
Yeah, I must admit, I look at what Man United are doing and the way they've been run, and it's actually criminal. Like the way that the Glazers have run
Horrendous.
that club is horrendously bad. The amount of overpaying and losing out on players and
Yeah,
signing the likes of Maguire for that much money, Sancho for that much money, Anthony for that much money. I mean, you wouldn't even get 80 million for the three of them now put together. Do you know what I mean? If someone was to
100%.
buy them, let alone 80
100%.
million just for Maguire. What's happening with your ownership before we move on from United? What is going on there, man?
Oh, mate, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. So the last I saw was that all of the other Glazers have now agreed for full sale. It's just Joel and Avram, and it's Joel and Avram are the ones that you tend to see. They're glory hunters. They're glory hunters. They only turn up at United on special occasions. The return of Ronaldo, the Carabao Cup final, FA Cup final. You know, don't get me started on that. Where are they when we have the Munich disaster anniversary? Never there, never there for anything like that. So I still think they'll sell. I think it'll happen, but the problem is it's not happening in this window. It's more than likely going to roll on for 2, 3, or 4 months yet. It's just horrendous. And you use the word criminal. Criminal is what it should be for what they've been doing in this sale process. Remember, this sale process was murmured in November last year. And we're on the 23rd of July now, and we're still no closer. I think what they hope will happen is we'll have a good start to the season, stuff dies down, and they can stay. But I don't know. Well, I think they go still, but I think there's a long road yet. Long road yet.
It's a joke, isn't it? Let's talk a little bit about Crystal Palace, because for me, this is going a bit wrong. Before we go into that, do us a favour, please, people. Let's see how many likes we've got at the moment. 49 likes. What's going on there, man? Wow. That's rubbish, people. Come on. You can do a lot better than that. Smash the like button. Make sure you go and follow Dan on his socials and his new channel. And make sure you subscribe to this channel. We're getting closer and closer to 11K. So make sure that you can help us get to 11K ASAP. If you do have questions, put them in the chat. Some people have already, so I'm starring those. Make sure you put a Q at the front of it so I know that it's a question, and we can do some questions after our last points on Palace. Of course, Zaha and Olise. Let's talk about Zaha, Dan, a player you know very well. He is a player that I always knew was going to leave Palace on a free, but I didn't know where he was going to go. I am shocked that he's going to Turkey. I don't know about yourself. I find that very bizarre. I honestly thought he was going to go to Saudi or stay local, but he's going over to Turkey now. The way he's done it is all a bit poor as well, from what I'm hearing. Hasn't really been the best. And I think that's a bit disrespectful to a player who, let's be fair, has had a club that have done quite a lot for him, a club that have always respected him, and a club that have basically given him what he wants. They offered him a contract on £200,000, which is more than enough for Wilfried Zaha. So I feel for Palace a little bit on this one. I think the way that he's gone about things is a bit disrespectful. And he's gone over to Galatasaray now, Dan. So what's your thoughts on this one?
I mean, I don't understand that signing. I don't understand where his head is for that at all. I can't see what's he going to achieve. Turkey always reminds me it's sort of the league that the older players go to retire. You don't see many of the elite go there in their prime. The way he's treated Palace, and from what I've read, and if there's Palace fans, I'm really sorry if I get this wrong, but wasn't he still training with them? I think he was still training with them and everything, wasn't he? And then all of a sudden he's gone, no, I'm going to Galatasaray. I think it's unreal. The other side of it, though, is I'll be honest with you. My problem has always been with Zaha. I think he's got a poor attitude, and I think he's a very selfish person. And I think the fact that he's done this at Palace is horrendous. At least tell them at the end of last season, look, I'm not signing, so they can go out there then and do their business. But the difference between Palace and Brighton, for me, I don't know if D will agree on this when he's next on, is Brighton have a clear pathway as to who's going to replace the players they have. When you take Olise and you take Zaha out of that Palace side, coupled with the fact you got Hodgson, who did very well last season to get them over the line, it's going to be bad news for him this summer. Honestly, I would, at the moment, if those two go, I can see them being in the relegation battle. I really can.
Yeah, so can I. I really can. And I think Roy Hodgson is a manager that's going to keep him up in the league, but he's not someone who I look at and think, wow, Palace are on to better things. Eze would be the only one they had left really that you look at and go, wow. Certainly they've got better players than they have had in the last few years with the likes of Mark Yehi and I think Anderson. That's a good partnership. I think their goalkeeper's good. I think they've got good fullbacks. But for me, I look at things with Elise, Eze and Zaha and think if you remove those three players, they are a very poor side. So it would be interesting. Let's talk on Elise because apparently there's a release clause that is around £35 million and Manchester City and Chelsea are both interested. I'm amazed that United and Arsenal weren't either because I think right wing, that's an absolute steal. I can see him going Man City because Mahrez has left. And I think, why would you not go Man City over Chelsea for me?
Yeah.
But what do you make of this, of the player and the deal? Because I think this is a bargain.
Unreal player at a club that I think it was always going to be the case that he would move on to another club. I think him going to Man City makes the most sense, as you said there, with Riyad Mahrez going. I think City were just waiting to see what was happening with him before they brought someone in. He will go into that team, and this is what Pep does very well. Pep doesn't. We spoke about this before with Arsenal, with United. Pep doesn't just build a first 11. He builds a 22. Do you know what I mean? He's got players that can interchange with everybody. This will be a hell of a signing for the money as well that it is. That's a steal. And this isn't the first time City have done it this season. Obviously, Kovacic for 25 million, Elise for 35 million. That's 70 million. We paid 55 million for Mainz. Do you know what I mean? It's the silly season, and I don't understand how City get away with doing this. I don't know how they get these signings for so cheap, because it's very rare nowadays you see them go out and absolutely obliterate it. Take Jack Grealish away from it, of course. They always seem to sign players for a decent fee. It's bizarre.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I think it would be a fantastic signing for City or Chelsea. I really do. And I can understand why they're both in for him. I think if your £35 million release clause was to come available for a player of that quality, Arsenal should be all over it, because Saka gets injured. Reece Nelson, for me, is just not that guy. There's too much of a drop-off. Yeah. I'm not saying that Olise is as good as Saka, but he's definitely, in my opinion anyway, better than Reece Nelson. And he's a player that I think can grow within that side, particularly a young side. That, you know, Olise is a very young player. So I think he'd be a fantastic signing. And I do feel like when you look at what Chelsea and Manchester City are looking at, position-wise, he'd walk into their sides at the moment. Now, there's not really any player that can walk into Manchester City, but now that Mahrez has gone, I imagine it would obviously be Foden who plays out there or somebody, but Olise could be right up there and say, do you know what, there's an opportunity for me here to try and compete with their best and go and win things. And I think that's exactly what he'll be looking at doing. As for Palace, I do think they're in trouble if they lose both these players. They're two of their best players. It's very similar to us losing like Saka and Martinelli at a different level. For me, they'd be in trouble big time. I don't think they'd go down because I still think they've got enough. But Palace haven't really been able to score goals. They're not been a team that I look at and go, yeah, their strikers are getting 10, 20 goals every year. Without Zaha and Olise, they're going to score even less, in my opinion, due to the lack of creativity. So they've got to try and replace them. It's going to be very, very difficult. And it's looking pretty glum for Palace, if I'm honest. So it's a worry, Dan, isn't it?
The other side as well with that, Potts, as well, you look at Zaha, obviously picks up a lot of free kicks around the box. Elise's so good on dead ball as well. So it's not just the goals that you're losing, it's the other side of it, the assists, it's the chance creation. It's going to be tough for them next season, because I don't see who they bring in. I'm not saying that they get relegated. I think obviously there's teams around there that are in trouble as well, but I do think they'll be in that battle. I think, come March, April time, they will be in that sort of 5 or 6 team mini league of trying to stay up. I really do.
Yeah, likewise, man. Likewise. Let's take a few of these questions. Let's start with Hoda Donkey, who says, would Olise be better than Kudus for Arsenal? The reason I would say yes is because Olise's been doing it in the Premier League. So 100%. I think that is, for me, the only reason. I really like Kudus. I think he's a very, very talented boy. But I also think with Olise, doing it at Palace, it's a position that I definitely know he can play. He can probably play on the other side as well. I think it would be a great, great signing. I really do. I think he's a superb talent. This one's from Christian. Dan, I'll let you take this one. It says, does Dan think that Elanga will be a good signing for Nottingham Forest?
Potentially, I mean, the thing with Elanga, I think Elanga should have gone out on loan last season, like Ahmad did. I don't think we've seen anywhere near what Elanga can do. He was one of those players that when he come in for United when Ranić was in charge, he was the best of a bad bunch. He was that young player that fans pin their hopes on and say, "Oh my God, this kid could do anything." Didn't play enough football last season. I don't know. I don't know where he plays for Forest, because obviously if they keep Brennan Johnson, the likes of, I think he'll struggle to get in ahead of him. But look, he's a young player that has got bags of potential. Week in, week out football could potentially help him. So we'll see.
Interesting. Let's come to this one from Christopher Kirk, who says, Potts, do you think Arteta will be willing to lose his job defending or persisting with Havertz? It's early days, man. I think it'll be very, very harsh to suggest that there'll be risks to his job for sticking with one player, because some managers it doesn't work, some players it doesn't work also. I think with Kai Havertz, the biggest risk about this is that it has not worked for Chelsea in England for 3 years. And that's why people are looking at that thinking, wow, that's a hell of a risk. This one for me has to work because Mikel Arteta is under huge pressure this season if he doesn't win anything again. And if there's a player such as Kai Havertz to be added to Fabio Vieira, that's £100 million, Dan, that he spent on two players that aren't working at Arsenal. So this one just has to work for me. What's your thoughts on this one, mate?
It's a weird one. This feels like it's an Arteta signing. This feels like Arteta has gone out and said, "I want him." The money that's been spent on him, it doesn't help at all. It's a big, like you said, it's a massive season for Arteta. I think you need to be at least winning a cup this season. A cup and challenging City, I think, is where you have to be this season. He's had the time now to build that squad. I think United so Ten Hag is probably 2 years behind Arteta. I think Arteta obviously come in, had to get rid of a lot of dead wood when he got there. He's been backed for whoever he wants, really, hasn't he? There's not many. I mean, the Mudryk deal, I suppose you could say, was probably one that he really wanted. But I think this season you need to hit the ground running, and I think there needs to be no dramas. If you can by Christmas still be in there with City and be in all the cups, then you're okay. But it's when the little results that go against you start to creep up, and that's when it'll be interesting to see if the fans in the stadium turn on him early on, or whether they do give him the chance. It's going to be an interesting season for him.
Yeah, big time it is, man. Ashley said, how reliable are these rumours to Kudus? Doubt this will happen. We should have spent the Havertz money on Caicedo. Do you think that's a weird one, Dan, as well, that we've gone in with his 65 million straight away? Likewise, Man United 60 for Mount. And it's like, boom, we've gone in with that. And then we were trying to haggle along with the Declan Rice stuff. We do the same with Caicedo. For me, £65 million put in towards, add another 20 million and you get Caicedo. I'd rather have done that, Dan. And I think most neutral fans would have gone, bloody hell, Arsenal just signed Rice and Caicedo. They're serious, man. But Havertz, everyone's now laughing a bit at it again. And it's like, oh, Arsenal spent 65 million on Havertz. Like, do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm getting at?
Mate, I'm a United fan. It's what we're best at. It's what we're best at. You know, a club names their price. We go in 20 million under and say, right, we'll give you this. No, we want 20 million more. Okay, we'll go in 5 million more. No, we want the 20. It's bad. It's bad negotiating, isn't it? And I think this is the thing. Players like Caicedo, they're not players that are just going to be decent for a season. He's young enough. He's nowhere near his ceiling. Just go out and pay the money, because he is going to be. He could be in the mould of one of the greats at Arsenal if he goes there. He could be in the mould of one of the greats at United if he goes there. His ability is unreal. So why not just go out there and pay the extra money? You know, we've as football clubs, we've both been guilty in the past of overpaying for players that are nowhere near that standard. So I just don't understand. It's a bizarre one. It's so bizarre, because I know obviously you've got people involved in both clubs who know what they're talking about. But I think sometimes you got to listen to the fans, man. You got to listen to the fans, and you got to look at what the player does and how good he is consistently week in, week out. Because you're not just paying for the player; you're paying for the consistency. You're paying that money to take your team to the next level, and that next level, the income comes more. So you've got to pay the money.
Interesting for me. It is interesting for me. Let's take this one from Chris. Says, Dan, why do you think that Arteta persists with playing Eddie up front? Simply, we ain't got anybody else. If Jesus is out, there's nobody there. I do get what you mean, though. I do think that he sees a lot in Eddie that I just can't understand what it is. Like, I get that he tries hard. I get that he gives 110%. I get that he runs around, brings energy. But in terms of finishing, I see a lot of fluff lines. I see a lot of fluff chances. I also get a little bit frustrated with some of the way that he seems to be given a lot more chances than others. Trossard, for example, got Player of the Month in March. We didn't see him again for most of the season.
Yeah.
But Eddie, he's always coming on, and I don't really know what it is that Arteta sees. He must be doing something in training in terms of scoring ahead of the others. But I don't think we will win a title with Eddie and Nketiah up front if Jesus is out. That's all I'm saying. And I don't mean that to be harsh, Dad. I think it's just facts, isn't it?
I think it is. I mean, I think the best game I saw Eddie play for you guys was against us when we come to your place, and he was unreal. But it goes back to what I was saying before about being a striker in the Premier League. You cannot afford to have one good game in 4 or 5. You have to be consistent to achieve anything. Again, this is another thing that we talk about with Arteta. I wonder just how long the fans will allow this to happen. And the problem is then the fans start getting on the players' back, and that's where you see players crumble. Do you know what I mean? So he's got a big decision to make there. I think what you're saying with needing another striker is bang on. It's bang on. I'd be trying to sell him. I'd be trying to sell him and raise money to get someone else in. I really would.
Yeah, I would. And people are saying keep Balogun, but if it meant that we had to sell Balogun and Eddie to get in one proper striker to compete with Jesus, I'd do that. I would, and then I'd use Trossard as the false 9 if we were really struggling and needed a third choice.
Do you think Balogun stays this season, Dan?
No, I think he's going to go. I think he's going to go.
Yeah,
I think he's going to go, mate, if I'm honest. We need a striker, Dan. Like yesterday, it was clear to me that we need a striker, and Eddie ain't that guy, man. So, yeah, like to see Balogun get a chance, but I don't think that he wants to be the second or third choice. And that's what he's going to be, because he's not going to get ahead of Jesus. So for me, he's going to go, man. I really do believe that. Ashley Boofer says, if Havertz doesn't work in the Granit Xhaka role, do you think that Zinchenko will be a better fit and play Tierney at left back? Or if he leaves, get somebody else in? I think, Ashley, that is a good point. But what it is also is a versatility, that there are a few options there now. Zinchenko hasn't played in the midfield role for Arsenal as a midfielder, but he does it when he's as left back because he does this inverted role. I think Kieran Tierney should have been used a lot more last season. And I do think that if we was to get a different profiled centre forward, then Tierney is a great option to bring on because he's fantastic, as we saw yesterday, at getting forward and whipping the ball in. And when he's whipping the ball into Eddie, it ain't really no point. You might as well leave him off. If he's hitting it up to Ivan Toney or Vlahovic or somebody like that, then yeah, you're looking at that option and thinking that's a really good potential, different dimensioned centre forward to bring on. And Kieran Tierney is one of the guys that can do that. I think we need another centre midfielder. I think we need an 8. I don't think Havertz is going to be the guy to play that 8. I think first team right now, our 3 midfielders are Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard. If one of them comes out, it's very weak. Very, very weak at the moment. So we need to ensure that we get another one in there. This one comes in from Aaron Knowles. Says, evening, gents. Slightly nervous about how open we were last night. Do you see Havertz being used against smaller teams? He's not up to it, in my opinion. Do you think, as an Arsenal fan, you'd be nervous, Dan, last night about the way we conceded goals, or do you just think it's too early for that?
It's pre-season. I mean, I get what Aaron's saying. Playing Manchester United, like we spoke about before, you want to beat Manchester United, just like we want to beat Arsenal. So there will be a lot of Christ Almighty, how did we lose against them last night? And as I said, United had no Onana in goal. Kobe Mainoo, just turned 18 in midfield, no striker. But the thing I will say about Havertz is you don't spend £65 million on someone to just play him against the smaller teams. He's going to have to play him, isn't he? Or else it's just a waste of money. You don't pay 65 million for a squad player, do you? Well, unless you're United with Mainz, but that's for another time.
Yeah, man, interesting one. People, we haven't even hit 100 likes yet. Come on, do us a favor.
Get those likes in, guys. Get those likes.
Man. Get them up. Like, subscribe, 2 buttons, and it means the world, man. So please do that now, people. Judy Toon for life, big up yourself. He says, who will be the first Premier League manager sacked? Good shout. There's always one sacked early. Do you know who I think will go? And I don't know if this is a bad shout for the fact that they've only just come up and they might not be expected to do well. But I do worry for Heckingbottom at Sheffield United because I just don't think that side for me has got a chance of staying up, and I can see them getting beaten. So I wonder how long they'll stick with him until they pull the plug and try and get like a Sam Allardyce type in to just try and get some form of results with them. But what about you, bro?
I think there's going to be a shock one, mate. I think there's going to be a shock one. Honestly, this is the Premier League. That it happens so many times. I mean, Bournemouth, if Bournemouth's boy doesn't start getting the results at the start, I can see something like that happening. Bournemouth have showed already that they're happy to sack a manager bang like that and have no real loyalty to them. Rob Edwards at Luton, I think obviously Luton are riding a wave of a high, but we've seen this so many times. These teams, you come up and think maybe if we change the manager, we'll have half a chance. So I think you got to look at people like Poch. I think Poch gets time at Chelsea. I think Chelsea won't do that again. I don't, and Dyche as well. Dyche stays. Everton won't get rid of Dyche at the start.
This could be a good shout though. I did think of this guy Lopetegui because I don't know what's going on with him. He doesn't look happy, does he? Anyway, as it is.
Would you be if you just re-sign Matt Doherty?
Precisely. Yeah, he don't look happy, does he?
No. There's a lot of trouble on at Wolves, isn't there? And they've just sold him. Well, Jimenez has gone to Fulham, hasn't he?
Well, it's a weird signing, that, isn't it?
Bizarre.
That is bizarre for me. And I know that he's not been the same since he's had his injury, but I do think that's a player that you don't sign when you don't score goals at Wolves. You know what I'm saying? I
don't know. He can't head a ball, can he? He can't head a ball anymore.
There we go. It's a worry. It's a worry. And yeah, I think Wolves and Bournemouth are the two that I think will be in trouble relegation-wise. I really do. I think they're going to be in serious trouble. But listen, a lot can change. The window's still open, etc., etc. Ryder says this is an Arsenal channel. No, I'm an Arsenal fan, but it's not. It is a football channel. Let's take the last few questions before we come to a close. This one comes in from Willa. Willa says, Potts, will we have different results or a different game had we buried our early chances we had in yesterday's game? Potentially. I just feel like the individual errors have cost us more than anything. I felt that Manchester United wanted it more. I think that they actually turned up to try and fight. It looked as if Arsenal were a little bit lackluster in parts. I understand that it wasn't our strongest team, but it weren't far off it. And that's quite worrying, really. So I'm not so sure if it would have been a different game. But listen, you've got to take your chances, man. And this is why a centre forward is needed at Arsenal still. It really is. I can't believe that people don't think we need a forward. It is quite scary if you think that. This one comes in from Daniel. It says, do you think Smith Rowe is a more viable and better option than number 8 rather than Havertz? He's bulked up and looked great and hungry when he came on. Yes, and more
Why
yes.
you spent money on Havertz when you've got that boy? Honestly, I don't understand it. I'm a massive fan of him, Potts. I love that player. He was just so unlucky with injury last season. I really like Smith Rowe. Really like him.
I agree. I think it's a great shout. And I think there's definitely a lot to be said about the way that he's been trained in that position. So a lot of people are saying that Arteta's trying to train him in the attacking 8 and trying to be that Granit Xhaka role that was last season. I think with Smith Rowe, he got 12 goals and I think 7 assists in the season before the one just gone. And like you said, had trouble with injuries. He played at Old Trafford when you beat us, and I remember him coming off, and we didn't see him again for pretty much the whole season.
It was in the I saw him. He got injured in the warm down, didn't he?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I remember thinking to myself, why are we not seeing this guy? And there was problems with him, and of course Tomiyasu. I feel personally we are going to see a good Smith Rowe this season, but, and this is a big question, where do we see him? Because at the moment, it's quite stacked in certain positions at Arsenal, and I hope that he gets a run in the team. Now, if it's staying as it is and we're not buying anymore, then it's not so stacked because Smith Rowe might get a chance. Whether Martinelli gets a knock and he comes on the left, whether Odegaard gets a knock and for me, he's ahead of Fabio Vieira. But in Mikel Arteta's eyes, I don't think he's ahead of Havertz after spending 65 million. So where does Smith Rowe fit in? It's a real thing. I'm glad that you like him, Dan, because I'm the same. I can't believe people are actually saying we might need to sell him and he might be a casualty. I'm like, this honestly.
He's another one, mate. His ceiling is so high. He could be anything. He could. You
look at Jack Grealish and you look at how good he was at that age. Smith Rowe's better at Jack Grealish when Jack Grealish was that age, isn't he? So let's hope that he can be that guy. Let's go to Ashley. Says we lack a clinical finisher. I love Jesus, but we need someone deadly. Your thoughts? Yes, facts. I like Jesus a lot. I think he's a fantastic player. There's no surprise that Man City wanted somebody other than him, though. Because they got Haaland, they got Aguero before him. Why did they not stick with Jesus? Because he's not the 25 goal a season.
They brought Alvarez in as well, didn't they, mate? And Alvarez is just unreal. Alvarez is the best second striker in the Premier League.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Unbelievable. So that's an interesting one. I do think we need a centre forward. Let's come to Ashley on this one as well. He says, keep hearing that Kiwior is breaking records in training with pace and fitness. You guys heard this? Yes, I have. Last season when he came, he broke the London Colney records. Now he's gone over to America and he's done exactly the same in terms of his pace, his agility, and his jumping. And this kid looks like he's got pretty much every record amongst him. I like what I see off the back end of last season. He looked quite comfortable. There were some problems when he first came into the side, and I think it was his communication, from what I hear, that let him down. He didn't learn English. He got taken back out of the side and then put back into it once he could actually understand some of his teammates. And since then, I think he's been great. And Mikel Arteta seems to want to play him in the kind of left-back inverted role as well, and the kind of player that can do a little bit of what Pep Guardiola does. So watch the space for him.
There's a similar story that a player at United that the exact same start as this bloke. His name was Nemanja Vidic.
Vidic. Vidic. I thought you were going to say
brought him in. No, God, no. Jones is gone. R.I.P. You know, he's done his thing.
You've replaced him with Johnny Evans. Jones of Johnny Evans.
Christ almighty. Vidic had the same problem when we signed him. We signed him mid-season. He come in, had an absolute shocker against City, was out of the team. It was the same thing, couldn't really get the hang of the language, and then the rest is history, obviously. So we'll have to see what he can do.
I'm just hearing from Eric Sevenhag. It says, Osimhen, 160 million, I'm hearing. Wow, no one's getting him then. That's for sure.
Hey, if we're struggling to buy Højlund for 60, we're not going into it.
Yeah, fair play, man. Fair play. Let's take the last couple of questions before we wrap up. Says Aaron Knowles says, do you think losing to big teams in pre-season will have much an effect on how we start the league? I would say no, but I must say this. Last season, we've smashed pre-season. And we went on 5 games where we won every single one. And it wasn't until we got to Old Trafford on game week 6 where we lost. That 5-game period, we looked superb. And the pre-season, we were electric. And we haven't looked like that this pre-season. Now, I've known teams that have gone and won Premier Leagues or Cups that have had a shocking pre-season, but I've also known teams that have had a really good pre-season where they've got their business done early and gone on to win some stuff as well. So I think it will be an interesting one personally. Let's take this last question, which is from Geordie Tune for Life. For you both, who will be the surprise player in the Premier League this season?
That's a good question, That's a good question.
Surprise player. I guess it's going to be a signing. Or will it be a player that's come up from the Championship? I don't know. But I'm going to go with a new signing. I think one of the best signings so far was probably the first signing. Alexis McAllister, I think, will be brilliant at Liverpool. I really do. I think he'll be a fantastic one. But is that a surprise? Because we kind of expect him to be good. Maybe it's not a good choice, that. I'm trying to think of a player that's gone under the radar since he's come in. A couple of people in the chat are saying Jackson from Chelsea. Could be, because I don't know much about him. That could be a surprise. I don't know, Dan. Help me out. I'm struggling.
Mate, I'm going Onana. I cannot wait to see that boy in the Premier League.
Onana.
I cannot wait. I am so happy we signed him. I am so happy. Don't get me wrong. I've seen him make some mistakes in the past, but that guy, the arrogance he's got, the confidence, and he's come out in the press and said, "I don't listen to criticism from the stands. I listen to the coach. The rest, I couldn't give a shit." I can't wait to see what he does. There's going to be times where we are going to have potentially some scenarios like Fabian Barthez used to be at United, but he's so good with his feet, and he's just he wants to play out from the back. I am so excited. Mafia Boss is so right on Timber. Timber, I am devastated you got, because I really wanted Timber at Manchester United. We were linked with him last season, mate. It was, we're going to get Timber. And I think it was the chat he had with Van Gaal, the Holland coach at the time, that said, don't go. And I think that's why we then went for Martinez. But he could be unreal, Timber. Honestly, I've seen him. As soon as United were linked with him, I started watching a lot of games with him in the World Cup, and then obviously in the Dutch league. Mate, he's quality. I really like Timber.
Yeah, likewise. I see a lot of good things about him, particularly on the ball. I think he looks fantastic on the ball, very comfortable. I like the way he's versatile. I like the fact he plays in a few positions that Arteta can see him in, not just what he can play, but where Arteta believes he can play. I think it's really key for Arsenal moving forward. I do think that's going to help this season if he does go to the same as last season. Let's say Saliba gets injured again. We're not bringing Rob Holding in now. We're bringing Ben White or Timber in. That is a hell of a lot better. We've got Tomiyasu still there as well. I actually think defensively, in terms of strength in depth, Arsenal are probably the strongest in the league now. I honestly believe that, even stronger than Manchester City. I think Manchester City's first team is stronger, but actually, when you look at their strength in depth, when you've got the likes of Rico Lewis, Gomez, obviously they've got Aki as well.
Shifted him
Good
out
players,
to left, didn't they? Shifted him out. Yeah,
good players. But for me, Tomiyasu, Tierney, Timber, Ben White, Gabriel, Saliba, Zinchenko. That's a strong defensive lineup, man.
The other thing I will say about surprise players, I spoke about him earlier on, and I don't know if it's if we can count him as a surprise player, but I do think Núñez will be a lot stronger this season. I don't like saying it because I hate Liverpool, as you all know.
I always liked him. I actually liked him the season just gone.
Yeah,
I actually think he's a good player.
I think he's going to add goals this season, and I'm a bit worried about him. I must admit. I watched Liverpool a couple of days ago in Preseason. He looked really strong, and he looked really quick, and he looked in tune with the players around him. Whereas last season there was a lot of, I think he was unsure of how to sort of fit into that system. I think he could have a really good season, worryingly.
Fair play, man. Fair play. Listen, Dan, we're going to leave it there. Mate, it's been a pleasure to speak to you tonight. As always, it is. Thank you guys for joining us as well. There's over 200 of you still watching. Make sure you do me a favor and press the like button. Make sure you're subscribed if you're not done already. Let's get us up to 11K people. Make sure you go over to Dan, follow him on his socials there at United First, and get his channel up as well. And we're going to see you next time, guys. Take it easy. I'll probably be back tomorrow evening, or I definitely will be back tomorrow evening to talk all things transfers again with some other people, all by myself. And we will see you then. Take care and up the Arsenal. Laters, people.